Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, and glad to have you along with us. How are you? How are you, my friends? What have you done in the great outdoors that was fun since we last talked? Hopefully, more than I have done. I had all these great, wonderful plans of how in this last week I was going to get out with my 350, my Brenton 350 Legend. During the muzzleloader season, it's legal where I hunt. I was going to get out and try to shoot a doe. At the very least, I was going to get down to the local river here that's just full of walleye right now. I was going to stand on the bank and cast chartreuse twister tails and jig heads across the current, bounce them back across the bottom, and try to get myself a limit of beautiful walleye. And maybe if I was lucky, I was going to do both. But things just got in the way. It just didn't work out. Between work obligations and family obligations and things that came up here and there, it just didn't happen. And this is for me, this is for a guy who, honestly, anytime I go in the woods or on the water, it's a legitimate work-related activity for me. And these are things that I have to do and things that are, it gives me content to talk about it and pictures and video to generate on my social media outlets. So these are things I have to do, and I look forward to them. And it just didn't happen. I think, well, what if my job was in a shop or in an office, and I didn't have a flexible schedule like I thought I had here until this last week. Overall, I've got a pretty flexible schedule. I can find time usually to get out in the woods or on the water, and this last week it just didn't happen. So what about folks like many of you who are in a shop all week or in an office all week, and you have a less flexible time, less free time than I have? It's got to be hard. Between the family obligations and the work obligations and whatever activities you're involved in, everything's vying for your time, especially this time of year, right? And it's going to get nothing but more intense and busy and maybe stressful, if you let it, for the next few weeks as we lead up to Christmas. So I'm going to tell you something I told you last week, and this time I'm talking to myself as much as anybody. Get outside. There are lots of great things going on right now. The late hunting seasons. I still haven't put down a doe. How tough is it? Avery, how tough is it to shoot a doe with a gun in Michigan? It's not. So why have I had such a tough time? Why have I not seen an adult doe in front of me during the daylight yet this season? Well, there are two answers to that. Either I'm hunting in the wrong place or I'm hunting at the wrong times. It's pretty simple. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to figure that one out. I don't have to be a John Eberhart to figure that one out, right? If you're not seeing deer, you're not in the right spot or you're not there at the right time. So I got to fix that. Not sure how I'm going to do it, but I got to fix that. Great fall fishing going on right now. As we're here in the studio right now, there's no wind. As we're recording the show right now, it's like mid-30s. It's going to be high 30s, low 40s today, and there's no wind. I should be out fishing. But I haven't been. Now, I don't know about ice. I know in my part of the state there certainly is no ice. What about my friends in the UP? Is there any ice at all yet? And I don't know the answer. I'm asking a legitimate question here. If you have fishable ice in your part of the state, would you help me out? Give me some info. Send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and let me know. In fact, that's the best way to get in touch with me for anything. Questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, Ask Avery questions, information, like do you have ice? Share your pictures with me, your hunting pictures, your fishing pictures, your trapping pictures. Send them to me. I'll share them with the world. Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. There are a couple of things in the news this week that are really bothering me, and we'll talk about them in depth here as the show develops. But one of them is the so-called proposed assault rifle ban that was put forward by a representative named Pepper out of the Dearborn area. Now, I will give people the respect that I think they have earned, but when somebody comes in and proposes a bill like this, I can't think of them as a representative of the people. I can only think of them as a clown based on their actions. Now, his proposed bill would ban assault rifles in Michigan, well, of course, unless you get them registered. And you have to register them every 5 years. And if you don't do that, then that's a felony because you're in possession of an unregistered assault rifle. Here's how his bill defines assault rifles. Any semi-automatic gun, not automatic, not fully automatic. And for the folks who are listening, and I hear from people all the time, Avery, I'm not a hunter, an angler, or a shooter, but I listen to your show because I learn a lot. A machine gun, like soldiers would use in war, you pull the trigger and it'll fire multiple rounds downrange. You pull the trigger once, it goes bam, 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 bam. That's a machine gun. That's a fully automatic weapon, which is basically illegal for people, the public, 99% of the people to have right now anyway. A semi-auto gun, which is what all of us use, unless we're using a single shot, you pull the trigger once, it goes bang once. You have to reset the trigger and pull it again, and it goes bang again. So it's not automatic, it's semi-auto. You pull the trigger, bang. Release the trigger, pull the trigger, bang. Okay? According to Representative Peppers, fortunately, I think he's now former Representative Pepper, his bill says any semi-automatic gun, keep in mind what a semi-auto is, that will accept a detachable magazine. Now, a magazine, often called a clip, but it's actually a magazine. It is the reservoir, it is the device that holds ammunition, a few rounds. In Michigan, you're limited to something like 5, I think, while we're hunting. It's a separate magazine that you can insert into the gun that holds ammunition. If your semi-auto gun will accept a detachable magazine, which probably 75-80% of the hunting rifles in Michigan are, and if that gun has a thumb hole stock, which a lot of hunting guns have a thumb hole stock that allows you to put your thumb in the stock and hold it in a different way rather than wrapping your thumb over the top of the stock. It's just more comfortable for some people. If it has a thumb hole stock or a pistol grip. Now, a pistol grip is a grip that sticks off the bottom of the forestock, the fore end of the gun, that allows you to grip it that way. Because I have bad wrists, because I've busted them up over the years, it is far more comfortable to me to hold a gun with a pistol grip in my left hand, I'm a right-handed shooter, than to try to crank my hand at an awkward angle for me and hold the gun. So if it's semi-auto, it accepts a detachable magazine, it has a thumb hole stock or a pistol grip, under this representative's bill, it would be considered an assault rifle. And he wants to ban them in Michigan. Oh, that's right. Unless you register the gun. every 5 years. And if you don't, it's a felony. Well, the good news is, by the time you hear this show, that will probably be a moot point. The bad news is, when the new legislature convenes after the first of the year, it's going to get brought back up again. You hear about it at the national level, you hear about it in Washington, you hear about it in New York and California, but you never think, man, you're in Michigan, really? The other big news that's out there is we're starting to hear more and more about these consent decree negotiations going on between the DNR, the state, and the tribes, the tribal fishermen, about where they're going to be allowed to net, how many nets, how many fish they're going to be able to take. And the news coming out of those negotiations is not good. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show after the break, Jim Felgenauer, a friend of mine, talks about a situation he ran into on a shooting range in southeast Michigan, also talking about spearing perch and fishing for sturgeon. Nick Green of MUCC follows up with his thoughts and the MUCC's thoughts, their position on this assault rifle, so-called assault rifle ban. Where we go now, Tony Radjenovich, the president of the group Fighting the Tribes, in hour number 2 will bring us up to speed, the latest on those negotiations. Eric Hilliard of the DNR reminds us it is time to apply for your Pure Michigan hunt. Then the Ask Avery question talks about, do you have to wear blaze orange during the late archery seasons? And in our third hour, Richard P. Smith talks about his deer hunting season so far, and we wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. That's all coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain on WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Rapid River Knives. As always, I have a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now. I would encourage you to check them out. They are high-quality, handmade pieces of art that are designed to be used every day, and used for generations. They come with a lifetime guarantee. And that's not just your lifetime. You hand it down, and you have a problem with a Rapid River knife, and you take it back to the shop in Rapid River or east of Rapid River on US 2, they'll take care of you. Chris Durson's a stand-up guy, and he's got a great company there. I would encourage you to check them out online at rapidriverknifeworks.us, or better yet, because time's getting short, I think a knife is one of the best Christmas gifts you can give. But since time is getting short here, and you don't want to be, screwing around with shipping and stuff, make a road trip. Head to their shop on US 2, just east of Rapid River, walk in the door, and pick out the knife that you want to give as a Christmas present, and pick one out for yourself as well. The website, rapidriverknifeworks.us, rapidriverknifeworks.us. This past week, I got an email from a buddy of mine, Jim Felgenauer. You know Jim. He's been on the show here before. Jim is an avid outdoorsman, hunter and angler, great conservationist. He's involved in many activities and groups designed to further fishing primarily, protect and encourage and promote fishing, especially his beloved sturgeon fishery. But Jim was telling me about a situation he had at a shooting range, and I thought that, that's worth talking about. And also, I want to follow up on his sturgeon fishing and talk about maybe a little perch spearing on Lake St. Clair as well. Jim, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm fine, Mike. Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Hey, listen, it's always a pleasure, always a pleasure. How has your fall hunting and fishing, how's your fall gone? Your hunting, your fishing adventures, what have you been up to?
I've been doing some deer hunting, and I'm, like you, still waiting to find that big, delicious doe out there someplace. So
they're out there, Jim. I see pictures of them.
Well, I'm an idiot. I'm the definition of insanity. I keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result.
I hear you. Yeah. Yeah, well, listen, I can relate to that. But I think wasn't it on one of these recent hunting trips that you had an interesting situation near a shooting range, DNR shooting range?
Yes, I did, Mike. I live very close to the Algonac State Park, less than a mile. I can actually walk up there. And they have a pistol range and a clay target range as well for shooting clay pigeons. They do not have a rifle range. Now, I spent a morning on a trail. It is a loop through the park behind the shooting ranges. And when I came out from that trail, I found an older gentleman about my age or a little younger, sighting in a 350 Legend on the clay target range in the state park with no backstop.
Ah.
And he was shooting right into the area that I had been all morning. So I told him, you can't do that, you got to leave. And while I was doing that, another person pulled up, about 40 years old, had a teenage, I presume, daughter with him. And he starts walking out onto the clay target range to do the same thing. He's got a target. And I said, what are you doing? He says, I'm sighting in my daughter's shotgun. I said, with slugs? He said, yeah. I said, she can't do that. So there are some people out there that should know better that we're taking a risk of killing somebody. So just the lesson there is it's not worth a negligent homicide charge to sight in your gun. You need to go to a conservation club or a range someplace and do that with a proper backstop. These people should know better. They ignore the signs. They ignore the rules. And kudos to the DNR, because I did mention that to the park ranger over there, Steve. He's a good guy. And I also, and the second lesson here is I also sent an email through the entire chain of command right up to the director of the Department of Natural Resources. You know, the parks chief, the local supervisors. I sent an email to everybody, and they acted on that immediately. So kudos to the DNR. If you go about things the right way, they are very, very responsive, and they did a great job with this. What they did is they put, at my suggestion, a cell camera on the range so they can monitor that from the office. And they also took a removable sign, a range closed sign, and they are opening that range up during shooting hours. And when shooting hours close at 4 o'clock, they go out there, they put that sign up, they close that range down. So they have a much better handle on it. It's being managed a lot better, and the response was swift and decisive, and great job to the DNR on that.
Now, I admit that those shooters should have known better than to use a center fire rifle or plan to on that range. But was it posted shotguns only, handguns only?
Yes.
Ah.
Yeah, people generally ignore the signs over there. You know, and the DNR and the state parks, you know, they lay off their seasonal help. They do have somebody there managing that range during the summertime, during the week, and during regular shooting hours. But at this time of the year, you know, they have a skeleton crew over there. They're doing maintenance on their equipment in their shop and that kind of thing, and they can't always be out there. So using the technology of the cell camera out there is a great deal. So they're like I say, they're doing a great job with it now. They're going to prevent somebody from being hurt out there. So good job.
So maybe the moral of the story is if you see something that needs to be corrected, don't go down to the local coffee shop and gripe about it. Do the right thing and go through the channels and get it addressed.
Exactly. And you know, you see guys complaining about things on Facebook all the time or social media, and that's just an echo chamber. There are ways to get things done. You know, if you work with the Department of Natural Resources, they will work with you. And they did a great job this time around.
I think you've been extraordinarily fair with the department, because when you have seen things that you didn't like, you've called them out on it. And now in this case, you think they did something well, and you give them kudos. So I appreciate that, Jim.
Well, while we're on that, Mike, you know, one of the things that we're doing, you know, there's not a fish cleaning station on Lake St. Clair, heavily fished lake. No fish cleaning stations. I'm working with the Department of Natural Resources to build a fish cleaning station at the reconstructed Crocker boat launch in Harrison Township. And, these guys, when they redesigned that, in the drawings, they included a spot for a fish cleaning station, and during the reconstruction, they included that in their engineering, and they are stubbing in water, sewer, and electric for us as well. So, and they actually found a funding source. Originally, they wanted to do an operating agreement. We wanted to do a gift and acceptance agreement. They found funding and for operation of that fish cleaning station, so we're going to build it and donate it. We've been working on this for over a year. So the Parks Division has been amazing, in working with us to make this happen. And we're looking at probably major fundraising going to start here next year, right after in January, and hope to have shovels in the ground in 2025. So I've got a pretty good working relationship with the DNR.
Fish cleaning station these days is a big deal because deciding what to do with the carcasses is the challenge because of the trace chemicals in the fish these days.
Yeah, exactly. That's a concern. And there's more to it than meets the eye in terms of working with water and sewer departments, accepting that waste stream and, meeting those requirements for chemical contaminants and that kind of thing. So, there's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Well, congrats and good luck on that project. Speaking of Lake St. Clair and fishing in the St. Clair River, your beloved sturgeon fishery, I think that season's done for the year now, Jim?
No, we actually got that season extended to March 15th.
Ah, I forgot about that.
For catch and release. It used to be over about this time of the year, but, they're pretty responsible anglers up here. And there's no risks to the resource here. Not many guys fishing this time of the year, but the guys that want to can. And there's a good fishery out there. I didn't fish much myself, but we had our tournament in September. We added 5 boats. We had 35 boats and landed 118 sturgeon in one night.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
It's a great fishery here.
Are sturgeon like many other fish that it gets to be this time of year, they start to put on the feed bag, and they're actually, maybe the fishing's actually better this time of year than midsummer?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, and big fish this time of the year as well. So very accessible. We still have a decent weather, open water out here. And as I understand it, the walleyes are doing very well also.
So you've got a great fishery right out in front there, right on through the winter. It's not going to freeze, right? That river never freezes?
No, it does get jammed up with ice at times, coming down from Lake Huron. So as long as there's open water, and, we've had guys out here jigging in January when we've had open water and doing very well on walleyes out here.
You got to be tough to get out there in the middle of winter, but if you're tough enough to do it, the rewards are there.
Yeah, that's you got to be younger than I am. Let's put it that way.
Hang tight, Jim. I got to take a break here. When we come back, let's talk about this perch fishery on Lake St. Clair. Whether or not it'll develop for ice, we don't know yet, but I think it's an interesting fishery. If you got a few more minutes,
sure.
We're talking with Jim Felgenauer. By the way, a good website for these activities Jim's involved in is stclairsturgeon.org, stclairsturgeon.org. President of the St. Clair Sturgeon Association. Sturgeon is an interesting fish. I am fascinated by these fish. I think it's so cool that we have a fishable population in our state. Living dinosaurs, swimming dinosaurs. And there's a really good sturgeon population in Lake St. Clair and the St. Clair River. But there's also an interesting fishery on Lake St. Clair that is unique to Lake St. Clair involving perch. Everybody loves perch. Everybody loves jumbo perch. And Lake St. Clair is the only body of water in Michigan where you can spear those fish. Now, whether Mother Nature cooperates and gives us, good solid ice is another factor, but the opportunity's there when Mother Nature allows. More coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including Big Country Gold in Sheboygan, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330, WTRX, and north of the bridge in the Sioux on News Talk 1400, WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Hunter Safety System and Elima Shield. Hunter Safety System, I think it's a great Christmas present. There are two types of tree stand hunters, those who have fallen and those who will. I think one of the best presents you can get for the hunter on your list is a Hunter Safety System vest. And while you're at it, why not get them some Elima Shield as well to take care of the scent and increase their odds of shooting a deer. Check them out online at huntersafetysystem.com. That's huntersafetysystem.com. We're talking now with Jim Felgenauer, an avid hunter and angler out of southeast Michigan. Jim, you've got a very unique fishery there on Lake St. Clair that involves spearing perch. Tell us more about that.
Yes, we do, Mike, and it's a great fishery. It's a great technique. Hopefully, we'll start getting some cold weather here, and we'll get an early freeze up. But in any event, there's a great population of nice large perch in the lake, and spearing is very effective. And one of the things that you and I probably don't get into is how to really do that effectively, and the whole key is attracting fish into your fishing hole. Now, guys that are in boats use mudders, like a canoe anchor. They pound the bottom with that, stir up the muck to attract fish into the hole. And you can actually use that technique through the ice as well. But the other thing is that perch decoy very well. I carve my own decoy. It's about 4 inches long. Favorite color, fluorescent orange. And very, very attractive to perch. I have jumped on a spearing hole, had 0 fish in the hole, dropped that decoy down, jigged it a few times, and just had the fish come swarming in. So, having some sort of an attraction is very important. You can use a larger rapala, a jigging rapala. You can use a flashy spoon. You can use a live perch decoy. Sometimes you put a live decoy down. That will be attractive as well. But the real key to doing that effectively is to have some sort of an attractor to bring those fish into the hole.
A decoy similar to what folks spearing pike would use.
Yes, but smaller. A lot of the pike decoys are bigger. If you are jigging that in a spearing hole for perch, I think the perch may see that as a predator fish chasing them, and it might actually spook fish out of the hole. I think that would be my experience. I would say your decoy should be no more than 4 or 5 inches. That works very effectively for me.
So is spearing more effective than hook and line on jumbos?
Not necessarily. Actually, my best day of fishing was up on Saginaw Bay. This was before they had a 50-fish limit. And I was using a larger jigging spoon, and I did exactly what I just described. I was looking down a hole. I saw a couple of fish. I took a large, shiny spoon, started jigging it aggressively, and I kept pulling it away from fish, but the fish kept coming and coming and coming, and pretty soon that hole was just black with perch. But then I used a jig. You can actually effectively fish a jig 5 or 6 fish per minute, on a shallow water. You can literally catch a fish every 10 seconds. And you can't quite do that with spearing, but the spearing comes into its own when the fish aren't biting aggressively. If you can attract them in, maybe they're more lethargic in a neutral mood. That's where the spearing really comes into its own.
I just think it's neat that the option is there and that it's so unique to Lake St. Clair's, like so many other things are on that lake that you've got out there, Jim. It's just it's a wonderful resource. It's a fish factory, and the history of people fishing and spearing that lake goes back for generations.
Yes, it does, and I learned that from my grandparents. I remember going out with my grandma and grandpa when I was just a small child. So Been doing that for more years than I care to admit.
So what else is on your agenda here? Do you do any small game hunting? Any chasing rabbits or squirrels throughout the winter, Jim?
Oh, sometimes, yeah. I enjoy a good squirrel stew, but I think tomorrow I'm actually heading up to the tip of the thumb to do a little bit of lake trout fishing here. In my old age, I'm exploring some other opportunities. One of those is some steelhead fishing. So, if I'm not on Lake St. Clair during the wintertime, I might find myself on a stream someplace trying to catch a winter steelhead.
That lake trout fishing, is that off the pier, the breakwall?
That's off the pier. Actually, and as I understand it, the burbot fishing has been very good up at Caseville, but this is the time of the year that the Lakers come in, and it's a very accessible fishery. There's a bunch of very, very small, probably 2-inch shad that come in there. The last time I was up there, I was filleting fish, and I literally cut those bellies open to find more than 2 dozen small gizzard shad, I think, in the bellies. So,
well, it's a great time of year to be outdoors here in Michigan. There's so many different opportunities, and I know, Jim Felgenauer, you're going to take advantage of as many as you can. I always enjoy our conversations, and I'll look forward to talking again soon. Jim Felgenauer here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. We'll take a break. When we come back, Nick Green from MUCC weighs in on this, assault rifle ban? That's crazy. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Port Huron on WPHM 1380 AM. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Newberry on WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Boning Archery, Michigan-based Boning, a leader in the archery industry for more than 3/4 of a century. Check them out online at boning.com. That's BOHNING.com. As you're in the woods for this late archery season, I'll bet you have some boning gear on your setup. If not, I would encourage you to check them out. For target archers, this wintertime target archery leagues coming up, Boning can help you out there as well. The website, boning.com, BOHNING, boning.com. I was telling you in the first segment of the hour about this piece of proposed legislation to ban assault rifles in Michigan. Semi-auto, accepts a detachable magazine, has a thumbhole stock or a pistol grip, would be an assault weapon, an assault rifle. This has me very concerned. The fact that we're seeing this here in our state has me very concerned. But I don't know anything about how this process works. So when I do have questions about the legislator and bills and proposed legislation, I go to my friends at MUCC because they have a handle on such things. Nick Green is the Chief Information Officer for MUCC, joins us more to talk more about this and hopefully understand this and get a feel for where we might be going. Nick, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Mike. Just to start, your concerns are warranted, and you certainly aren't the only one. This bill 6544, especially, we've been hearing lots of chatter about, so it isn't uncommon right now within our community.
So midweek, as we are recording this show, is there a chance this is going to go anywhere, or is this just a bluster move by a guy who was on his way out?
MUCC's expectation, especially given that session is pretty much done, when this airs, session will be done for the year pretty much. It is lame duck, so crazy things can happen, but with a Republican-controlled legislature remaining in place, the likelihood of a bill like this getting through is slim to none. We don't expect this to go anywhere. However, we have a changing of the guard coming in January with a new session. We will have the same governor, and then we'll have a new House and Senate that will be democratically controlled. And we do expect these type of bills to come forward. That isn't to fret. Folks still have to worry about their constituents. They still have to remain true to those who voted them in. So just because someone is a part of a specific party doesn't necessarily mean we need to worry one way or another. But these are things we can expect to continue to come forward, probably especially as soon as January when the next session starts. But in terms of this current bill, we do not expect it to go anywhere. The rep is termed out. He will be done. But this similar language likely will be introduced in a new session.
Can things like this be done at the state level? I mean, I was worried about it coming out of Washington, and I hear about it in other states, but here in Michigan?
Yeah, I mean, to do, a little bit of opining, and I don't understand a lot of the national kind of legal logistics of everything, but this is an issue that states are probably going to learn very quickly. If they push too hard, the Supreme Court's going to take it up. And likely the Supreme Court, given what we've seen with recent decisions, the Supreme Court would hold that there cannot be no ban on whatever they define as an assault rifle. So that's a long game. We would hope it doesn't get there. Michigan is a state that's rich in shooting, outdoor heritage. This is kind of part of who we are. We have a lot of guns in our state, a lot of safe firearm owners. We have a lot of gun coalitions in our state. It really is just a part of who we are, and I think 99.999% of gun owners are safe. We treat our firearms with respect. We train our kids to use them with respect, and these are tools that can kill people and should be treated as such. So I think in Michigan we're pretty good about that, and there probably isn't too much to worry about. But the long game would be that, this could be challenged at the Supreme Court, and I think that's what some states are already looking at trying to do, or some folks in states where this has happened.
Well, I feel better knowing there are groups like MUCC, and specifically MUCC out there, that you're going to be keeping an eye on this, and you're going to be there watching our back and letting us know what's going on. Because unfortunately, in today's world, maybe it's if some legislator wants to get their name out there, boy, there's no better topic these days than to jump on this bandwagon and make yourself famous for an instant.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard the governor's litany of things she hopes to tackle in her upcoming 4 years, and one small part of that is some gun stuff, working on red flag laws, working on locking homes and firearms. So wherever you fall on that side of those arguments, these are things to pay attention to, because they're going to affect all of us as hunters, anglers, shooters, gun owners. And MUCC has a very, very conservative view on the Second Amendment. We believe that there should be no infringement upon it in any way, shape, or form. And that's what we'll continue to promote and pay attention to here in Lansing.
Nick, I appreciate that. Nick Green of MUCC. MUCC.org is the website, MUCC.org. I'll just be happy if she'll fix the damn roads as she promised, 4 years ago. But that's just me. That's just me saying that. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, we'll continue on the controversial subjects with Tony Radjenovich of the CPMR, the group fighting against the tribal netting. More on that coming up in hour 2.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network, heard on more than 30 radio stations across this great state of Michigan. Yes, this is first and foremost a radio show. It's the biggest outdoor radio show in the state of Michigan. I thank God for that. I thank you for that. And I would encourage you, if you can, to listen to the show on your local radio station to get your local news and weather and sports, even your local commercials. Maybe there's a sale, maybe there's an a sale you want to take advantage of. But if you can't hear the Outdoor Magazine radio show on your local radio station, maybe your local station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, or if you live, God forbid, in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, isn't it nice to know that there's a podcast version of the show available? You can hear the podcast on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, on the Facebook page, on most of my social media outlets. You can hear it on Google Play, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, all of the anywhere you can hear a podcast, you can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. It's even on YouTube. Yes, we put the show up on YouTube. I also do monthly podcasts for some of my advertising partners, including Angler Quest Boats, Primal Outdoors, Polar Craft Boats, and Offshore Tackle. And when we're done today, recording this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, we'll record this month's Offshore Tackle podcast. And we're going to be talking about nighttime trolling for walleye on Lake Erie. But that's a conversation that would apply to a lot of big bodies of water that hold walleye, so be sure to check that out. I told you earlier that there were a couple things bugging me this week. One of them was this so-called assault rifle ban proposal by somebody in southeast Michigan who was trying to get their name out there. He just happened to be a politician, but not for much longer. Thank you very much. And the other topic is the continuing conversation about what is called the consent decree negotiations. We've been talking about this and hearing about this and being frustrated about this now for a long, long, long time. Tony Radjenovich is the president of the Coalition to Protect Michigan Resources. This is the group that's been involved in the trenches in this fight for so very long. They've had their mouths taped shut throughout much of this because of a gag order. But now there's enough information coming out, and there's been enough filed in the courts that is public information that we can start to get a feel for this. And Tony has graciously agreed to join us and say what he can about this. Cap, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, Tony. I appreciate you joining me, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this from somebody who actually knows something about it.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be with you this morning.
So let's back up here at the beginning as much as we can, Tony. The consent decree negotiations. What is this all about?
Well, let me try to boil down 49 years of a lawsuit into a couple minutes.
Please do.
The tribes have a treaty right to fish, and that was from the Washington Treaty of 1836. And then when the state outlawed or prohibited the commercial take of lake trout in the 60s, the tribes kept fishing for them. So then in 73, they wanted to exercise their treaty right. And there was a lawsuit from that the federal government sued the state of Michigan for not complying with the treaty right. 1979, federal judge Noel Fox issued an order that the tribal commercial fishermen could fish unregulated by the state of Michigan. When they did that in May of 79, many of those fishers came into Grand Traverse Bay. And within 4 months, they had basically fished all of the lake trout out of the area, or out of the bays. And the groups that we represent, the Coalition to Protect Michigan Resources, at that time, and our organization has changed over time with different member groups and conservation groups. But at that time, what we did is, we went and asked for an injunction to have them stop netting, and that was done. And the reason the injunction was put in place and it was stopped because they found that in 4 months, basically there wasn't any lake trout left. They were almost decimated from overfishing. And so it became apparent that there has to be some form of regulation on the commercial fishing. And between that time of September of 79, when the injunction started, to 1985, there were multiple versions of court cases and suits, and negotiations started. So in 1985, the three tribes at that time, Sault Ste. Marie, Bay Mills Indian Community, and the Grand Traverse Band, came together with the state of Michigan and the federal government and agreed to what was called the Consent Decree of 1985, which was an agreement of how to manage the Great Lakes fishery of the tribal ceded waters, which are the northern half of Lake Michigan, from Grand Haven all the way around the tip of the mitt to Alpena, and the eastern part of Alpena for Lake Huron, and the eastern part of Lake Superior. And then that was renewed in August of 2000. And then the 2000 agreement expired in August of 2020, and we've had, I think, 6 or 7 extensions, and there's a current indefinite extension of the 2000 agreement until they come to a new agreement. And so that's a real quick understanding that the tribes have a rundown of what's happened over 49 years. It's a legal battle of how to regulate the Great Lakes between the state and our tribes. Now there's 5 tribes, including the Little River Band and the Little Traverse Bay bands. And they do have the right to fish commercially, but so does the state have a lot of its users are recreational anglers all get to use that water. And so we've realized that for the last 37 years, a co-managed fishery between the state and the 5 tribes and the federal government has worked well. And now, well, we're trying to work that out and see if we're going to come up with, another 20 plus years of a well co-managed fishery. And based on what came out last week, I'm not so sure.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Is there any chance that this agreement that you've been working under for 2 decades and seems to work reasonably well, it doesn't look like that's what we're looking at in the future now, Tony?
So it doesn't, because one of the main things that happened with the 2000 agreement is that there was a decision at that time that the consent, the cornerstone of the 2000 agreement was the use of science in calculating the availability of fish stocks and using that to determine the harvest rates. And then the state also bought out state licensed commercial fishers, their boats and their trap net gears, and transferred that to the tribes. And what this allowed was that 14 million feet of gillnet effort, so that's annual gillnet effort, taken out of northern Lake Michigan, and its impact was that it reduced the bycatch of sport fish in the areas that they would fish. This new agreement, as we got light of by the order that came out last Friday, is they're putting back in a whole bunch of gillnet. Basically, based on what I was able to take out of the judge's order, that there's about 57,000 feet of gillnet effort per day, and that was just under 11 miles of gillnet effort that's going back into Lake Michigan. Now, how many days a year are they going to use that? That was not stated in that order that we were able to read from last Friday, but it looks like there's a whole lot of gillnet effort that's going back into Lake Michigan. And we know there's more, because in his order he said that the Bay Mills tribe, which fishes mostly out of Lake Huron, is going to be able to fish with no limits on their gillnets. So there's going to be a lot of bycatch of sport fish, it looks like, in this new or the successor agreement to the consent decree. So
sport, real quick before we take a break, sport fish are not targeted, but they're allowed as a bycatch?
That's correct. And in the current agreement, because trap nets were heavily favored in the 2000 agreement, they allowed for a certain amount of bycatch on a daily basis by a fisher using trap nets. And then if they were gill netting, they had a small amount that they could keep. The rest had to be put back into the lake, dead or alive. And that's why they went from and reduced the amount of gill nets to use trap nets, is to reduce the bycatch of sport fish. And when I'm talking sport fish, I mean Chinook salmon, coho salmon, steelhead, brown trout, smallmouth bass, walleye, and then there is a season for perch, and they're able to do that.
Gotcha, Tony. Hang tight, Tony. We got to take a break. We're talking with Tony Radjenovich, who's the president of the Coalition to Protect Michigan Resources, talking about this consent decree negotiation. I'm going to call it a fiasco because it's been going on forever. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette on WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. And there is some really, really good late fall open water walleye trolling action going on Saginaw Bay right now, right in front of Linwood Beach Marina. They said they will keep the docks open, the launch ramps, as long as they can, even to the point of pushing ice out of the way. As long as it's safe to be out there, they will be open and give you an opportunity to get out there and chase them. The website for Linwood Beach is linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Right now we're talking about fishing with Captain Tony Radjenovich. He is the president of, he's a charter captain out of Leland, for one thing. I think probably, in my opinion, it's the most beautiful port in the entire state of Michigan. But he's also president of the Coalition to Protect Michigan Resources. This is the group that's been involved in these consent decree negotiations for the last couple of years now. And Tony, you were talking about they are trying to allow, they. Who is they? Is that the DNR? Is the DNR the group that wants to do all these things?
They're part of the group, yeah. So what is going on in the negotiations? There's 7 parties that are negotiating. That would be the state of Michigan's MDNR. It's the federal government is involved with this as well due to the treaty. And then the 5 tribes of northern Michigan, which is the Little River Band, the Grand Traverse Band, the Little Traverse Bay Band, the Bay Mills Indian Community, and the Sioux St. Marie Tribe.
I would think that the DNR would kind of be representing the sport anglers and the charter captains across the state. I would, if they are taking sides, I would feel like they should take our side. But what I'm hearing and reading and seeing, I'm not sure that's the case, Tony. No,
and I think you're correct in that. We as the coalition, we are assigned by the court. It's called an MUCC, basically a friend of the court, where we get to participate through observation in these negotiations and court hearings. And we are able to get our input into these negotiations through the MDNR's negotiating team. And unfortunately, the MDNR's negotiating team decided to stop working with us early summer. And there's really been no discussion back and forth between our group and the MDNR. And that's just unfortunate because we have a lot of people, a lot of recreational sport anglers all across the state that we represent, and we get feedback from them all, and we try to share that with the MDNR. And I am definitely I'm upset. I'm concerned that a public a department that serves the public has decided not to listen to or work with the public and the user groups that they are now trying to set regulations for.
as much money and time and resources as the DNR has spent over decades to manage and develop that fishery, you'd think they would see it as a vested interest and want to protect it.
They haven't told me or our team in these negotiations their reasoning for why they have negotiated to expand gill netting in Lake Michigan. We took out 14 million feet of gill net effort in the 2000 agreement. And, you know, I've tried to find the history on this, but it appears that this MDNR negotiating team, it's the first that has expanded gill nets in decades in the Great Lakes.
You know what I found interesting, too, and actually I got to be honest, it concerns me and even worries me, is the fact that the governor seems like she wants to get involved now.
We haven't heard much, basically not at all, on how what the governor's stance is on this. The governor, from my understanding, is that she has put her team together to negotiate this agreement, and she's allowing her team to do so. So I don't know how hands-on the governor and her advisors are, but it looks to be that this is coming from the leaders of the MDNR and the negotiating team from the MDNR.
Actually, I'm very glad to hear that, because I was concerned that when she showed up at those last negotiations that she was going to somehow get involved in that. So I'm glad that that's... I was going to say we can keep politics out of it, but I don't think we can these days, can we?
You know, we got to be honest with ourselves. We've got 7 governments here trying to figure out how to manage a natural resource. I don't think you can keep politics out of it.
So as it stands, okay, so the consent decree has been extended, but there was a judge's order here last week. So what is the status of things right now, Tony?
So right now, the 2000 agreement has been extended, and I don't have the order up exactly, but what it's been extended until all of the concerns of all the parties are adjudicated, and that they can come to an agreement for a new decree. As we know that this order that came out on Friday, there is an impasse between the Grand Traverse Band and the MDNR on certain provisions that should be included in the new agreement, and the judge ruled on that in order to accept the proposal from the Grand Traverse Band. The Sault Ste. Marie tribe, it also states, has requested through motion to the court to use their rights of fishing in the tribal ceded waters unregulated by the state and not part of a consent decree. And that issue has not yet been resolved. And they're going to continue, I believe, using the courts and negotiations to try to work towards an agreement. I don't know where we stand because, as I said, we haven't been getting communications from the state in basically the last 5 months or so. And there's a status conference coming up, December 16th, where the judge will hear from the parties. The parties will update the judge, and there'll probably be some more direction coming out of that hearing or that status conference on December 16th.
Is this a federal judge here in this, Tony?
That's correct. It's the federal judge, Judge Maloney, down in the federal court in Kalamazoo.
How does a group of charter captains and recreational anglers, how do you fight against the very well-funded tribes and try to hold your own with the huge government agency like the DNR? Don't you feel like you're outmanned, outgunned?
Yeah, it feels that way. And so when I get asked that question, how do we do this? I ask every angler in the state of Michigan and those that come to the state of Michigan, join a local fishing club or conservation association and be active with your clubs and associations and ask them to support the Coalition to Protect Michigan Resources. Because I started off today, this is a 49-year-old court case. And the only way that we can be involved is by hiring lawyers. And fortunately for us, our lawyer has been involved in this case since the beginning. And he's still with us, and he has trained one of his colleagues that's been working on this for about 10 to 15 years as well. And so we're outmanned, we're outnumbered, we're outfinanced. But the way that we do it is by having our local anglers joining their clubs, supporting their clubs, and their clubs supporting the coalition.
So, big picture, what's at stake here? I mean, I would think it's an overstatement to say the future of the Great Lakes salmon and trout fishery is at stake or at risk, or is it?
It can be. It all depends on how this expansion of gill nets is going to be managed. We don't know how many days a year they're going to be allowed to put those nets in the water. We don't know how many fishers are going to, new fishers will be coming, tribal commercial fishers will be coming into the system. And because the one thing that we could read out of this order is it doesn't tell us that the tribes are allowed to catch more fish in this new agreement than they're allowed to catch in the current agreement. So it's kind of like boggling my mind that why would you put in, millions of new gill net effort when the amount of fish that they can catch isn't changing? And that's why I'm so concerned about the bycatch, which was the concern back in 2000.
Tony, before I let you go, I don't. This whole thing is so concerning here. It's just, it's got to be frustrating for you. I don't know how you can just deal with this for so long and keep a positive attitude and go out there in your charter boat and think, man, things are looking good for the future.
Well, and I tell people, this has been going on for 49 years. Yeah. Keep fishing. Go out there and the passion that you have for fishing, continue to do it. We've gone through some dark times back in 1979 when they thought that the best option was to allow tribal commercial fishing to go unregulated. It took a while, but we were able to get that into a consent agreement that made sense and has worked for 37 years. And
you're not, just to be clear, I want to make sure we make this point before we're running out of time. You're not saying that the tribes don't have a right to fish. That's not what this is about, is it?
They absolutely have the right to fish. It's not about that. It's about how we share it so that all user groups can get their share of the resource.
Tony, I appreciate that. We're going to end it on this note. Keep up the good fight. I would encourage people to go to the website protectmiresources.com, protectmiresources.com. There you can actually donate to the cause. And I know these folks could use some money to fight these big legal battles. Tony, good fishing to you. And listen, let's talk next spring when you head out on the water. Let's not talk about consent decree. Let's talk about fishing northern Lake Michigan next spring when you get back out there, all right?
Thanks so much. I look forward to doing so.
All right. Tony Radjenovich of the the Coalition to Protect Michigan Resources, the website protectmiresources.com, protectmiresources.com. And we'll put a plug in for Tony's charter business. The website is Reelin Leland, reelinleland.com, ReelinLeland.com, reelinleland.com. A beautiful, beautiful port. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, a reminder, this is the time to apply for the Pure Michigan Hunt. I'm going to win it, but there are 3 people, so there's 2 open spots for you. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine radio show in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. You can hear us in Tawas on WIOS 1480 AM and 106.9 FM. In fact, twice each weekend. And you can hear us, let's go north of the bridge. Let's go to Manistee, WTIQ 1490 AM and 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. It's MUCC.org. That's MUCC.org. And a quick reminder, if you want to sign up to become an MUCC member for the first time, Use the promo code Mike, all caps, M-I-K-E, and save yourself 25%. While you are online, you just might want to apply for the Pure Michigan Hunt. Now, as in previous years, I am quite convinced that I am going to win the Pure Michigan Hunt this year, but there's still reason for you to apply because there are 3 winners. Now, last year, I tried to get Eric Hilliard of the DNR to admit that I was going to win this thing, and he just wouldn't do it. So I've got him back on again this year, and maybe I can change his line of thinking. What do you think, Eric? Can you guarantee me a win this year?
Well, I can't guarantee you a win, but I just looked at the numbers, and right now we have 22,530 applicants that we're going to select 3 winners from next month. Now, have you bought an application, Mike?
Well, not yet, but that doesn't mean I can't get about 50 of them.
You could buy 50 if you wanted, but it only takes one. I mean, we typically have 1 or 2 of the 3 winners. You know, they only bought one application, so all it takes is one. So if you get it in before the end of the month, you know, you can be one of the. You can at least get your shot at it.
Eric, I think this is. I know. I think this is just a great program. I think it's such a wonderful deal for those 3 winners. What do they get?
Well, they get a prize package from some awesome sponsors that we have that support the Pure Michigan Hunt. They can see all of the lists of the prizes available if they go to michigan.gov/PMH or michigan.gov/Pure Michigan Hunt. We'll get them there also. But really the thing that most people are after are those licenses for that hunt of a lifetime. So the winner that'll be drawn, the 3 winners that'll be drawn next month in January are going to get the chance next year to hunt elk, bear, spring and fall turkey, antlerless deer, and then they also get first pick at a managed waterfowl area for a reserved hunt. It's really an amazing year of hunting, and that any elk license is really probably the most coveted out of all of them.
Yeah, that's the big one for sure. And remind me, it's only $5 to apply, right?
Yep, it's only $5, and you can buy as many applications as you like, and you can get them as gifts too. And this is what I recommend for folks that want to get these is gifts or stocking stuffers, especially if you're buying for multiple people. So you can buy in your own name, so you don't have to have the hunter's driver's license number or their sport card number. You can go to michigan.gov/DNR licenses, and you can create your own account and log in with your own information and purchase applications. And then if you are one of the winners that are selected, you can just say, hey, I bought this as a gift for this individual, and therefore I would like the prize package and all the licenses to go to them. And at that point, they are the de facto winners. Now, if you're buying for multiple people, we do recommend, let's say you're going to buy 2 applications for your wife and maybe 2 for your dad, let's say. So you would want to go in and buy 2 applications and then do a separate purchase for the other 2 applications. That way we can give you the timestamp and you'll know exactly who the winner is out of that group. Either that or you can have your own little mini draw, I suppose, if you want to buy 10 applications for, 5 different people and, decide among the family who's gonna be the intended recipient.
Now, I like to get my licenses online, and you can certainly apply for the Pure Michigan Hunt that way. Can you do it in person at a licensed agent as well?
Yes, absolutely you can. So you can go to any of the licensed agents across the state and just say that you would like to purchase a Pure Michigan Hunt application or applications, and you can purchase it that way also. You
said 22,000 so far. I would suspect you'll get a pretty good rush here at the end of the year.
We usually do. The biggest sales months for us are during the bear and elk draw and are during the bear and elk application period in May, and then December. And I think December is especially attractive to a lot of people because it's right down to the wire, and they don't have to wait that long to find out whether or not they won. And we're going to be revealing that online on January 20th this year. Our 3 winners are going to find out who they are.
January 20th, and we have until when to apply?
You have until midnight, 11:59 and 59 seconds on December 31st.
December 31st.
Once the ball drops and it's New Year's, you can no longer apply for the draw.
But you could apply for next year.
Not until March.
Oh, not until March. Okay, I thought it was year-round. Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, I'm very confident that I am going to be one of the 3 winners, if not this year, sometime in my lifetime, Eric. So I appreciate the chance to apply for this, and I would encourage people. I mean, what a great deal for $5! It's like the fun of just talking about it and joking with your friends and not knowing and knowing that, hey, for $5 there is a chance, however big or small, that you could win the Pure Michigan Hunt, and I think that's a pretty cool deal.
Well, hey, yeah, I think so as well, and I always appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about it because it really is a great program, and that money goes back into habitat management here in the state, which is amazing.
Perfect, Eric. I will look forward from hearing from you on January 20th. I'll send people to the website michigan.gov/PMH and remind you, you've got until the end of the year, December 31st, to apply for the Pure Michigan Hunt. 3 winners will be chosen. There are 2 spots available because I have one of them locked up. We'll take a break. When we come back, the Ask Avery segment this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM, 95.3 FM, and north of the bridge in Escanaba, WCHT 600 AM, 95.3 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by my friends from Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. Oh, just a reminder, the way this segment works, this is your chance to get involved in the programming of the show, the content of the show. This is your chance to ask me a question directly or have me pass along a question to somebody in DNR or MUCC or something like that. The best way to get those questions to me is to send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's exactly what Nathan did this week. Nathan, I'm not even going to try your last name, buddy, and I apologize for that. But Nathan asks, is it legal to take a bow and a firearm out at once in the late antlerless season? And the question is, well, yes, you can do that. If there is an archery season open and there is a rifle season open, you can take both tools with you in the blind. But then the follow-up question that got a lot of attention as I was doing a live stream here in the studio before we recorded the show. The question is, if you're out there bow hunting and you don't have a gun with you, do you have to wear blaze orange? Okay, so you're out there in the muzzleloader season or the late doe season. You don't have a gun with you. You could if you wanted to, but you don't have a gun with you. Do you have to wear blaze orange? And again, the discussion we had in the Behind the Mic segment here, the online live stream before we recorded the show, there was a lot of confusion over this. So I reached out to the DNR, and their answer is, as if a firearm can be used, you need to wear blaze orange. Meaning, okay, if you are out there in muzzleloader season and you're bow hunting and you don't have a muzzleloader with you, you still have to wear blaze orange. Because it would be legal, or it is legal, to hunt with a gun during that time. Same thing with the late doe season. If you're out there bow hunting during the late doe season, if there is a firearm season for deer open in the area where you are bow hunting, you have to wear blaze orange. So the discussion came about, well, what about early in the season? You know, what about early in the archery season? Well, early in the archery season, except for the independence hunt and the early doe season, it's just archery season. So to follow up on that, reaching out to the DNR, archery season does not require hunter orange to be worn. In a season in which a firearm can be legally used to hunt deer, a person must wear blaze orange if bow hunting. Let me find the correct one I'm looking for here. Early archery season starts October 1st, and on November 15th, changes to firearm rules in regard to blaze orange. Once firearms are no longer legally allowed to be used, the orange requirement reverts back to no orange required. So again, you can put whatever spin you want on this, but the definitive answer is, if you are out there bow hunting during a time when someone could be gun hunting for deer in your area, you have to wear blaze orange. Now, I will admit that, like every other law that's out there, it seems, game law, I mean, you could look at the rules and regulations and say, well, that's not the case. But when I reached out to the DNR for clarification and a definitive answer, here's what it is. You can have a bow and a gun with you. There's nothing wrong with that at all. If it's legal to hunt with a bow and legal to hunt with a gun. You can have them both with you and then take your choice which one you want to use. If you are out there with a bow and a gun, obviously it's a legal firearm season, so you need to wear blaze orange. If you choose to leave your gun or your muzzleloader home and just go bow hunting during a season when a firearm is legal to be used for whitetails, you have to wear blaze orange. That's the answer. You can try to put a spin on it. You can try to say, no, that's not what the rules say. I'm going to tell you this. Me, Mike Avery, in my efforts to stay legal and safe, if I'm out there, I'm going to wear blaze orange because that's what the law says. Even if I don't have a gun in my hands, I'm going to wear blaze orange. However, I will be out there taking advantage of the gun season as much as I possibly can. So it's a moot point for me. Thank you, Nathan, for sending that question into this week's Ask Avery segment. Again, the email address to do that, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. And a big thank you to the folks at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back in hour number 3, we're going to check in with Richard P. Smith, talking about his latest edition of his Great Michigan Deer Tales book. Also want to see how his deer season is going so far. And then we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. That's right here on Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. More than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, and so glad to have you along with us. Well, I asked in the first hour of the show what you've been doing. Have you had a chance to get outdoors, do any hunting or fishing, get out and have some fun? And I told you that my outdoor efforts have been, well, they've been somewhat limited the last week, and they certainly haven't been fruitful because I haven't been out. I think if I was to ask Richard P. Smith if he's been out in the outdoors, I don't care what time of the year it's going to be, he's going to have the opportunity to get out there. Richard is an interesting guy and a guy I have much respect for. I first met him, it's been so many, many years ago. I remember spending some time with him back in the UP, back when they had dumps up in the Keweenaw with a big old boar. First time I'd ever been around a bear. Richard's like, just relax. Everything's cool. Everything's good. I remember running into Richard back when we had the moose lift back in the mid-'80s. Pashiki grade when they let those moose go, the moose that we got from Ontario. He's just been an icon in the Michigan outdoors here for so many decades, and he continues to come up with great content, great articles, great photos, great video work, and it's always a pleasure to check in with him. And he's graciously given us some time this weekend, and I appreciate it. Richard, welcome back. How are you?
You.
Oh, Richard, we got you back now. I'm sorry. How you doing, Richard?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing just great. But this is a busy time of year for you because you're still out there hunting, I'm sure, and you've got your a book tour, though limited this year, and you got the newest edition of Great Michigan Deer Tales out there.
Exactly.
Let's talk though about your deer season so far, Richard. How's it going?
It's been frustrating this year. Hunting in Keweenaw County, the farthest north county in the state, a lot of hunters may not realize, but we really got a tremendous amount of snow on the third day of gun season. We got at least 1.5 feet of snow on the 17th November. It started falling early in the morning and continued all day. And that deep snow has prohibited me during gun season from getting to my two best stands. In fact, I got stuck in the deep snow trying to get to both locations. So I was limited to one stand to hunt, the one that I would have preferred not hunting.
Well, I'm thinking, boy, if we got 1.5 feet of snow down here, it would, I mean, for one thing, it would shut things down. People wouldn't go anywhere, but it would, the deer wouldn't be used to that much snow in that short amount of time, and I think it would change everything. Your whitetails up there in the Keweenaw, are they used to that type of snowfall, or does it affect their movements as well as you as the hunter?
They are used to deep snow in that part of the UP, certainly, and they adapt to it very quickly, and they're able. We have a number of subspecies of whitetails in Michigan, and the northern UP has a subspecies that are very well adapted for deep snow with longer legs, bigger bodies. So it doesn't impact them as much, but that deep snow we got certainly reduced the deer harvest in the western UP this fall.
Because hunters couldn't get out there?
Yeah, they couldn't get to spots. Like, I'm sure I wasn't the only hunter who couldn't get the stands they wanted to hunt. Keweenaw County has the lowest deer harvest in the state. In the new reporting system we have is really bringing that out clearly. The figures I saw at the end of gun season only had 151 bucks reported for the whole county. And that's one of the reasons I hunt there. It's challenging, but I didn't realize the kill was as low as it's proving to be this year.
So the 151 number, do you think, I mean, obviously it points to a low harvest, but do you think that's an accurate number, or do you think people haven't bought into reporting these deer online yet?
Well, I think it's partially due to difficulty in reporting. Now, I experienced that problem. My brother shot a nice 8-point with a crossbow on November 12th, a few days before gun season. I had a laptop computer with me, but I had no internet access, and there's a lot of areas in Keweenaw County where there's no cell phone access. It took me 4 days to report my brother's deer kill, partly due to human error on my part. I wrote the last number of his license number down inaccurately, which created problems. But the main problem was getting internet and cell phone access. I finally had to call the Marquette Service Center, Marquette DNR office, and wildlife biologist Brian Browell walked me through the reporting process, and he's the one that discovered I had the last digit incorrect on his license number. So there's other people that probably couldn't report their deer. They got discouraged, didn't go through the steps that I did to finally accomplish it.
But still, 151 for the whole county, that's pretty low.
It's the lowest in the state.
And I was going to ask you, Richard, why, with the lowest buck harvest in the state, would you go to Keweenaw County?
Well, there's lower hunting pressure for one, and there's some big bucks. And that's one of the reasons. I had some dandy bucks on camera that I was looking forward to trying to harvest. And in fact, one of the stands that got snowed out of, I hadn't hunted it at all. And I had photos of a nice buck in the daytime. I was waiting for the right wind direction to hunt that stand. As it turned out, I never got a chance.
So when you get a snow like that early in the season, help me understand migration, and do the deer in the Keweenaw migrate, and would that get them thinking about migrating, or is it way too early regardless of snow conditions?
The snow is deep enough that some deer did start migrating, and they do migrate in the Keweenaw to yarding areas like they do in the rest of the UP. Some of the deer started migrating. We got some warm weather after that deep snow that reduced it somewhat, but still not enough to get to the stands I wanted to get to. Some of the deer may have returned to their summer range that started migrating, but some of them may not have.
See, I am so ignorant to this migration pattern because I don't deal with it downstate. It's an interesting factor and one more piece to the puzzle in deer hunting in parts of the UP.
Exactly.
Are there they don't migrate in all areas, like down in the southern part of the UP. Did they migrate there as well?
Well, if they get enough snow, if they get a foot or more of snow, they do migrate in the southern UP as well. They concentrate more in winter thermal cover in swamps, in evergreen cedar swamps, where there's major yarding areas. So they do migrate in every county in the UP.
So are you done hunting, or can you get back into at least one of your spots over there now?
Well, there's one spot I could still hunt, but what I think I'm going to shift to more southern counties where it's legal to shoot antlerless deer with archery equipment. There's only a few counties in the UP where it's legal to shoot antlerless deer with bow and arrow. And that would be Menominee County, Dickinson County, and maybe part of Iron County. I think I'm going to shift to where there's more deer and try and harvest a doe.
But that archery gear, if I remember right, does not include crossbows?
That's correct. It does not. In fact, I'm going to have to do some work with my compound bow, reduce the weight, and practice drawing it to build up my muscles because I can't use a crossbow, which I have been during the early archery season in the UP. There is one area, the chronic wasting disease management zone in the southern UP, where crossbows can be used. That one exception. Unfortunately, our natural resources commissioners don't understand the value of allowing crossbows during the late archery season for managing our deer population.
Well, I'm no wildlife biologist, but if you can use it during the early season, why you can't use it during the late season makes no sense to me at all.
It does not make any common sense. And one good thing about this new reporting system is we're going to be able to determine how many deer are taken during the late archery season through the reporting system. In the past, they've lumped the late archery harvest with the early archery harvest and not broken it down. I think the late archery harvest is minimal, very low, has a little impact on the deer population. And that data will maybe help convince commissioners in the future to allow us to use crossbows in the UP during December.
The more good information they can work with, the better, right?
Exactly.
We're talking with Richard P. Smith. His website is richardpsmith.com. That's richardpsmith.com. You know Richard. Noted outdoor writer, hunting expert, black bear expert, whitetail expert. Much of what I've learned about bear hunting has come from Richard, and I routinely go back and pick his brain these days as well. But we'll take a break here. When we come back, I want to talk about the latest edition of Great Michigan Deer Tales and how maybe we can learn more about deer hunting from reading Richard's accounts of other successful deer hunters, and more after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC, AM and FM, 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM, 580 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Michigan-based VersaSkins owner Paul Perrone has come up with a great concept. Why buy different camouflage hunting sets when you can buy one good quality set of clothes that are warm, wind-resistant, water-resistant, and then snap on and zip on an outer liner with a different camouflage pattern? Change your skin for the season you're in. And the really cool part, now through at least Christmas, there's a 40% discount if you go to the website, versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. I wear VersaSkins. I enjoy it. It keeps me warm, keeps me dry, keeps me comfortable. And knowing that it's a Michigan-based company backed by good people makes the experience even better. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Go to versaskins.com. Take advantage of big savings now. And you'll thank me later on this one, versaskins.com. Right now we're talking with Richard P. Smith, hunting expert, outdoor writer, been on the outdoor scene here in Michigan for so many years. Richard, before we talk about this latest edition of the book, how has the outdoor scene and covering the outdoor scene in Michigan changed or evolved over the years?
Unfortunately, it's gone down dramatically. We used to have all of our statewide newspapers, daily newspapers, used to have major outdoor pages, and some of them even had outdoor writers on staff. And that has changed dramatically. Outdoor coverage is not even hardly covered in most newspapers today compared to what it used to be. And I think that's unfortunate. A lot of the coverage I see, outdoor coverage, is about bird watching, hiking, camping, and those are all great activities, but they're covered at the reduced coverage of hunting and fishing. And I think that is one factor contributing to the reduced number of hunters. They don't read about it. They don't see it. It's not as visible as it used to be. And that's not beneficial.
Well, you've certainly done your part to keep hunting out there at the forefront.
I'm trying. And you do a terrific job yourself.
Well, I appreciate that, Richard. But I feel like this outdoor lifestyle needs people to promote it and champion it and encourage it and try to defend it because, man, there's a lot of people out there that just don't like what we're doing these days.
Exactly.
Tell me about this Great Michigan Deer Tales, the concept. How did this come about? How many years ago was it?
Well, it was 1994 when Book One was published of Great Michigan Deer Tales, and it was an idea that I came up with that I knew that there was a lot of interest among hunters in knowing the story behind some of the biggest bucks taken in Michigan. And Commemorative Bucks of Michigan, the statewide organization that maintains big game records, had started in the 80s, 1982, 80, something like that, and they were starting to collect records. And there were some amazing bucks that had been entered in those records. And I was involved with CBM near the beginning, and I, in fact, compiled some of their first record books. And there wasn't room for detailed accounts on how some of these biggest bucks were taken in those record books. So I decided to do a book that would cover the important details about how these deer were harvested and some of the background of the hunters who took them. And it was just a trial basis that my wife and I, Lucy, published Book One of Great Michigan Deer Tales. And it was an overwhelming success. In fact, before the end of the year we published it, we had to reprint it because we printed 5,000. We sold all those in a matter of months and reprinted another 5,000. And that book has sold quite a few. copies over the years. And the people started asking, well, why don't you do another one? So I did, and now we're up to book 8.
And what have you learned by hearing these stories from these hunters? Are most of these big bucks, I'll say, is it luck or is it skill that puts somebody on a big buck from what you've seen?
It's both. There are a few hunters who are dedicated to hunting big bucks and put the time in research and are successful on bagging those deer, but they're in the minority. The majority of the big bucks taken in Michigan and probably most other states, there's a large degree of luck involved. And even the serious hunters who target big bucks, they often need a little bit of luck on their side to be successful as well.
Well, I'll take luck. Anytime, any day of the week, I would take luck falling on me when I'm out there deer hunting, absolutely.
Exactly. And one of the important lessons I've learned from interviewing hunters who take the big bucks and writing these books is that any deer hunter can take a huge Boone or Crockett caliber buck if they just are in the right place at the right time. It doesn't require a lot of skill. The highest scoring typical buck on record in Michigan was taken in by Troy Stevens in Jackson County on a spot he had never hunted before. He got there before daylight, found a deer trail, set up a stool along this deer trail, and he killed a buck that scored 198. And he'd never been in that spot before, and he just picked a spot in the dark before daylight.
Wow.
It just goes to show you got to be in the right spot at the right time. The more you're out there hunting, the better your chances to eventually take that big one.
Is it hard to get these hunters to share their story, or are they more than willing to tell about their big buck?
In most cases, they're more than willing. They're very willing to share their story. There are a few cases people who are concerned that other people will infringe on their hunting property if word gets out about the big buck they've taken, that don't want their story told. But they're the exception. There are not many in that category.
Well, and it's pretty hard, I would think, in today's world, especially with social media, to keep a big buck or the story of a big buck under wraps.
Yeah, it is.
And what I like about your concept, Richard, is you're hearing this story from the person who took the buck. It's not a social media account. It's not secondhand. It's not people who are jealous. It's the person who shot the buck.
Exactly.
What comes to, with this latest edition, the 8th edition, any stories you can share with us?
Sure. There's the current state record typical crossbow buck was taken in Washtenaw County by Kerry Shear, and he had no idea that buck was around, and he wasn't hunting for a big buck. He was just out hunting with a crossbow, and a doe was in heat. The doe went across a food plot he was watching, and then this big buck came behind her, and he shot it. Another chapter, in fact, the Kerry Shear buck is in the first chapter. The second chapter is about the highest scoring non-typical from Washtenaw County, taken by a bow hunter. And he did tremendous amount of research in order to be able to take this deer. He really concentrated on getting it. And here's where luck came in. He went to get to his stand to sit to watch for this deer, and the buck was with a hot doe, and he managed to get a shot at it on the ground before he even got to the stand.
Wow.
2 tremendous bucks from Washtenaw County, the first 2 chapters. There's a number of chapters from the UP, one of a DNR employee who snow-tracked a 4.5-year-old buck and was successful, and also stalked another buck with bow and arrow during bow season, a 5.5-year-old buck, a DNR employee. And there's a chapter about velvet antlered bucks, several velvet antlered bucks that have been taken in Michigan, one of the chapters. And bucks that locked antlers and drowned, there's a chapter on those. That's a sample.
You cover the gamut here. You mentioned Washtenaw County, then you mentioned the UP. Are you, from what you've seen over the years, are we seeing more bucks out of the big farm country down south or the cedar swamps in the UP?
The farm country, definitely far and away, more big bucks, and that's been the situation for many years now. We have terrible deer management in the UP, which has reduced the number of trophy bucks we produce. We're trying to carry too many deer through our severe winters. We lose too many deer during the winter, and before those deer die, they damage the winter habitat, so the winter habitat can't carry as many deer in the future. And that's reduced the ability of the UP to produce those big bucks that we used to historically.
And yet you can't help thin the herd out using a crossbow in the late season.
And getting back to one unrestricted tag on the combo license.
Richard, now, usually this time of year you make a big downstate tour to meet people and shake hands and promote the books. Is that the case this year?
Well, I am doing it to some extent. It's scaled back. Some of the bigger bookstores are still not willing to do book signings. But Schuler Books at the Meridian Mall in Okemos, I'll be doing signings from December 15th through the 18th, and then at Jay's Sporting Goods on the weekend of the 9th through the 11th, this weekend.
This weekend, okay.
I'll be doing signings.
Clair or Gaylord or both?
Both. I'm doing Gaylord on Friday the 9th from 2 to 5:30, and then in Clair on Saturday and Sunday from noon to 5:30.
Well, wonderful. Enjoy your trip downstate. I would encourage people to stop by and see you, and we'll look for the latest edition, version 8 of Great Michigan Deer Tales, and I'll send people to the website, richardpsmith.com. Richard, always a pleasure. Good luck to you. We'll talk again.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine. Richard P. Smith, noted outdoor writer, black bear expert, whitetail expert, hunting expert, outdoor writing expert. I was going to ask him about moose. We'll save that for a future conversation because he is, I've been thinking about this for some reason lately, and that moose lift we had, taking the moose out of Algonquin Provincial Park in Ontario, bringing them back to Pashiki Grade west of Marquette. We were promised 2,000 moose, or 1,000 moose by the year 2000, and a moose hunt. Just didn't work out that way. I'd be curious to hear Richard's thoughts on that, but that's a conversation for the future. We'll take a break. Lots more coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery. I sure appreciate you being along with us. And just a reminder, you can hear the show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan. That's a lot of stations. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN. And you can hear us in Saginaw on WSGW, AM and FM, 790 AM, 100.5 FM. In fact, I'm in the studios of WSGW right now. I for 3 hours each week, I borrow one little corner of the building that most of the week is Pat Johnston's studio, but he allows me to sneak in here today with Charlie Rood at the controls, at the helm, in charge. And it's a beautiful day out there. There's no wind, it's not raining, and the crowds are starting to line up already. And it's going to be a good hour and a half before Charlie gets out of here, but people are lining up. Charlie, with their signs. There's babies out there, Charlie. People want you to kiss their babies, even in the post-COVID. That's how much of an icon you are. So, Charlie, I do appreciate you helping with the show. He's got a big smile on his face. He thinks I'm kidding. Look out the window. Anyway, this segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reader create an outdoor getaway in your backyard. Well, fall cleanup's all done now. It's most of the fall decorating, the Christmas decorating is done now. So how can the folks from Reader help you out? They can take care of your snow when it comes. Reader is like a 4-season, all-service group of people who want to do everything they can to help you get the most enjoyment and leisure from your lawn and from your property. I've worked with these folks for a long time now, for many years now, and they've just done a great job for me. They're working for our neighbors now. They're doing projects at our neighbors' houses. And it's not too early. Think about this. It's not too early to start thinking about your springtime project. Get yourself on the list now, so as we get through the winter months and it turns nice again, you'll be first in line to get your springtime projects from the folks at Reeder Landscaping. Check them out online at reederlandscaping.com. That's reederlandscaping.com. I've really enjoyed this week's show. I mean, I'd like to think I enjoy all of the shows, but this week has been, I don't know, pretty special. A couple of topics really got my attention, one of them being the assault rifle ban. I put that in quotes. I just, you got a legislator who is termed out, so he knows he's not going to get it through, but what does he do? He pokes the bear. He stirs things up. He does something to get his name out there by proposing an assault rifle ban here in Michigan, and that and under this legislation, and it's that's defunct. That didn't make it through, but it's going to come up again after the first of the year when the new state legislature meets in Lansing. But under this bill, an assault rifle was described as a semi-automatic gun. We're not talking a fully auto. We're not talking a machine gun here. A semi-auto gun that when you pull the trigger, it goes bang. You release the trigger, pull it again, it goes bang. A semi-auto rifle that accepts a removable magazine, which 75% of the deer rifles out there accept a removable magazine. So if it's semi-automatic, had a removable magazine, and had a thumb hole stock or a pistol grip, it would be considered an assault rifle. Now, the caveat is, in his graciousness, he would allow us to keep our hunting rifles that he calls assault rifles if we get them registered every 5 years. And if you didn't register them, it would be a felony. I never, ever thought I would see such things in our great state of Michigan. Now, we had Nick Green from MUCC on in the first hour, and he says, look, it concerns us as well, but keep in mind, Michigan is a pro-hunting state. There are a lot of people out there in Michigan, a lot of responsible gun owners. You hear about the tragedies, right? You hear about the mentally deranged people doing bad things with guns, but it's not the gun. I don't get how can you not understand? Guns don't jump out of people's pockets. They don't jump out of people's holsters. They don't jump out of people's gun safes to do bad things. Guns don't do anything. I could lay a gun right here on the table in front of me right now, and it would sit there. It wouldn't do anything evil. It would sit there. It's a tool, like a hammer. A hammer can be used for good. If you get somebody who's mentally deranged or out of their mind, they can do violence with that hammer. That's all a gun is. I also found the conversation with Tony Radjenovich, the president of the group fighting over this whole consent decree negotiations. The lack of progress there after 2 years of negotiations. Interesting times. Good times. If you look at it from the right perspective. If you look for the good, if you get out and enjoy what we have. I think I need to go sit in a tree stand. Or at least a Wraith 270 see-through ground blind. And try to finally put that big doe down. I got time yet, but I keep saying that, and pretty soon I'm going to run out of time. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery, and I sure do appreciate you being along with us. I know there are a lot of things you could be doing right now, a lot of content you could be watching, content you could be listening to, and the fact that you're hearing my voice, whether the broadcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show or the podcast version of, means a lot to me. I wouldn't be able to be in this business as long as I have without your support. And I really do appreciate it. I also appreciate the partnership and friendship of a lot of people that I worked with over the years, of course, including wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner, who helps us wrap up each week's show. And he's here once again. David, welcome back.
Hi, Michael. How's it going today?
Good. Listen, hey, I had a great time at the restaurant for Wednesday Night Live the other night.
Me too.
It's so weird when we record this show on a Wednesday and we haven't done a Wednesday Night Live yet. But Dave, I'm so excited about this, and I'm sure it was a big success.
I'm telling you, we're geeked too. I got my whole old chefs, my couple of nephews that have been with us for 25 years. I'm telling you what, it's gonna be fun.
So what's the latest, Dave? I mean, have you got a firm date for closing the restaurant's doors yet?
Yep, we're going to retire as of the first of the year. We're going to shoot through New Year's, and if anybody wants to come and have one last big hurrah, I'm going to make some great specials and maybe some wild game and stuff like that. So if anybody wants to come, get a reservation in, because people are already making reservations for New Year's because they know we're closing.
Sure. Is this, it's got to be bittersweet for you, Dave, right?
You betcha, man. I love so much what I do. It's not a job, it's a passion. I'm telling you. And I know when other people say that, but I'm not BSing you. I'm telling you what. I just love it. I love catering. I love making a couple of 300 to 400, 500 people happy, when they leave. Everybody just congratulates us, or we get a standing ovation or something like that. Like even from your church, Mike, everybody's always been very happy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people look forward to that event. You're a big draw, Dave. You've been around long enough, and you've done such a great job that the name Dixie Dave is just so well known. How did you get into the wild game niche? Because that kind of has been your niche over the years, I think.
Yes, it has, Mike, and I appreciate you for helping me bolster that. My grandmother, she was Czechoslovakian, and we grew up just across the garden from her. My grandpa gave all of his kids a 10-acre, piece of property out of his land, and so we lived right next door. And my ma, she helped take care of them when they got elderly, and my grandma always showed me how to cook everything. She was right from Czechoslovakia. She cooked the most outrageous raccoon or muskrat and stuff like that. And I stood on a wooden Coca-Cola box so I could reach the stove to watch what she was doing until I grew up a little bit. I guess I never really grew up much, but anyway, that's how I got started.
Well, and when you say...
And on my own...
Yeah?
On my own, I tried to perfect all of the stuff that Grandma showed me, because we hunted pheasants and rabbits and raccoons, and I trapped muskrats and what else we could do. It was just her showing me and getting me started. We never let anything go to waste.
That's what I was just going to say. Fish or game that most people would turn their nose up at, you don't hesitate to dive in and make it a meal that people think is wonderful, Dave.
I know. It's a meal to remember, a lot of stuff. People, they tell me they don't eat sheephead. I mean, my God, sheephead's a great fish. They don't eat muskrats. Look at how many people eat up the muskrat and then at your dinner even especially. And there's none of that left. Or raccoon or coyote or bobcat. That's some of the first stuff to go. Because nobody's ever tried it and they want to see exactly what it's about. And we've tried to do some pretty outrageous dishes for you and other folks too, not just you.
Have you ever tried a dish that you had high hopes for and then you taste it and you go, that didn't work out?
Went to a wild game dinner one time and they had porcupine, and I thought, it was okay, but I would have done it different.
What about one that you've done? Have you ever had a dish that just turned out to be, doggone it, that one didn't work?
No. I've done it for so long, Mike. I can anticipate exactly what stuff is going to taste like.
That to me is so cool. I mean, you know your art, your craft so well. You know it so intimately that you know what a meal is going to taste like before you ever even make it for the first time.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Any chef worth his weight is definitely going to have the same exact motivation to try to do something like that different, whether it's veal or beaver. You know.
Well, Dave, it's a real pleasure to work with you. Listen, when you retire, you still going to join us here on the show?
If you'll have me.
Oh, of course. Absolutely. Yeah, that makes me feel good right there. And I would encourage people, if you want to get down to Dixie Dave's restaurant one last time before he retires, it's Oscar and Joey's Roadhouse in Birch Run. Make your reservations. New Year's is the latest, 989-624-9349, 989-624-9349. And we had a wonderful time there at Oscar and Joey's for our last big Wednesday night live blowout. If you were there, it was good to see you. If you missed it, you really missed it. My name is Mike Avery. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Do not hesitate to reach out to me on that address, at that address. Questions, comments, criticisms, concerns, pictures. We'll share it with the world. And I'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.